Hi there, it's Deborah Irene, and it is story time. And I think today is May 18th, it's a Monday. And I'm outside, and I've told you all before that I have kind of a noisy place, and there are people rushing home from work. So on the busy street in front of my house, you're going to hear some background noise. So when I get ready to tell the story that I'm going to tell today, we will go inside so that you can hear a little better. The story I'm going to tell today is about enjoying the simple things. And when I first started doing a few updates on story time here back at the beginning of the pandemic, when we were first staying at home, I told you all that I had started a garden, and this is something I have maybe only done one other time in my life, and I really was looking forward to it. And I wanted to show you the progress on my garden, and I've got a few other things to show you. You might be able to hear birds singing in the background and chimes. I've got some beautiful chimes up right now. But first, I'm going to take you over and show you the garden. And I'll switch this around so you can see it. This is a community garden, and there are other people that garden here. We all have our own plots, and mine was really bad with weeds and all sorts of stuff that had been dumped in it, so I got it all cleaned out. And this was several weeks ago. I've got some grass growing up there now I need to pull out. But you can see some of my plants are beginning to grow. So I have some tomato plants, peppers, squash, zucchini, and another tomato plant I bought because my cucumbers, look over there, they just didn't quite make it. Oh well. I also have some parsley down there that I understand is supposed to be very, very easy to grow. So I'm going to go back over here to my porch area because I also have several flowers, petunias that I have put out this year. But the most exciting thing for me that has happened is I purchased this waving petunia, and it's a hanging planter. And I noticed 4 days ago, I'll show you, that I took this thing down to water it. And in the middle of the plant was a nest. And there was one egg in it. Well, each day, there's been one more egg. Today, now there are 4 eggs in my nest. And I wanted to show that to you because that really excited me to see that a bird had made a nest in my flower arrangement. Now I'm going to get that hung back up. So I am going to put this phone down for a minute. I don't have an assistant helping me, so you're going to have to bear with me. I want to put the plant back up before the mother bird gets upset. So bear with me as I put this down. Thank you. I think I got it up there. So I just wanted to show you these things that I've been enjoying, the simple things in my garden. So thank you for looking at that. So we'll go back in the house now and continue with the story time today. And I hope I have enough battery left on my phone. I just noticed it was getting a little bit low. Okay, now you'll be able to hear me a little bit better. Okay, the story that I'm going to read to you today, I put a little announcement on my Facebook page earlier today to try to give people a warning about it. And this is a story about family, and it is a blog that I wrote back in 2014, I believe. I'll read that to you here in just a minute. And it was just a memory that I actually, too, something that happened during that time caused a reflection back. And so I want to read this to you. But I also want to tell you first that at the very beginning of this story, when I read it, it is a flashback. You know, I've talked about that before. I write that way a lot. So the very beginning of the story is immediately into a flashback. This story, again, as I stated, was a blog that was published. I'll just read that portion first. I wrote the blog in June 2014, and Country Magazine published a condensed version of the story, and they titled it Stop and Pet the Pony. So let me show you that here. Stop and Pet the Pony. It was a really neat story. You know, I wasn't sure. I liked it that they changed the name of it. The name of my blog was Hanging Over the Fence, but they always shorten things up when to suit their needs. And so they called it Stop and Pet the Pony, and I called it Hanging Over the Fence, and you'll see why in a moment. So that was published in the August-September 2015 issue of Country Magazine. And several of my readers preferred the blog version. They agreed with me, as did I, but I was still grateful for the exposure. So let me read this to you. Again, it's Hanging Over the Fence. And if you'll bear with me, I think I'm going to take my scarf off. You know, it's cool and breezy in Kansas City. We've had kind of a cool spring so far, and just a little bit chilly today. So this is from my book, Someday I Will Write, and it is in this section, A Time for Family, Chapter 23, Hanging Over the Fence. We pass this way twice a day, up and down the hills, early in the morning as we set about our day, me on my way to the office and you on your way to daycare, and again late in the afternoon on our way home. I found peace in this small stretch of road, still marked as rural in the midst of two subdivisions, a modest ranch home and a barn flanked by two pastures on either side. Sometimes the horses corralled in the south pasture, and sometimes they romped on the north side. It was the highlight of our going out and our coming home to see the horses. From the back seat, safely strapped in, you would announce, "Mommy, I want to pet the ponies." And if they weren't in the pastures, no ponies today. They grazed deep in the pasture, at least a football field length away, and I was always in a hurry, rushing to work or rushing home. No time to pet the ponies or anything else. You never cried or fussed, but simply reminded me, at least once a day, "Mommy, I want to pet the ponies." One mild autumn day, a little before dusk, when we reached the bottom of the first hill in the south pasture, I saw one horse with his head hanging over the fence. Before you had a chance to utter those familiar words, I offered, "Want to pet the pony?" Yay! I pulled onto the crossroad because there was no off-street parking. Unbuckled and lifted you out of your car seat and carried you across the street. I managed to hop the ditch in my royal blue trumpet-flared wool skirt and matching pumps with you on my hip. The horse seemed to be in waiting simply for us, with his head still hanging over the barbed wire fence. I glanced toward the house across the pasture and saw a gentleman in overalls walk out onto the front porch. Go ahead, I encouraged. Pet the pony. Hugh sported that familiar crooked smile and said, Mommy, do it. I reached up and stroked the long bridge down to his nose. Then you safely followed my example and grinned, the widest I had ever seen. I wished we had an apple to reward the horse for his hospitality, but all we had to offer were our hands of love and appreciation. I waved to the gentleman observing from the porch as we hopped the ditch back to the car. This is one of those moments etched in my memory, a stop and smell the roses moment in the middle of a jam-packed life. More than 25 years later, I stopped and smelled the roses again. Last weekend, my sisters and I gathered at Mother's to organize and sort, preparing for a sale. So many things will be gone soon. Evolution and age are a part of life. The days in this home are coming to a close. My nephew brought his young family for a visit. After dinner, we looked out the back door and saw 2 horses and a pony in the distant field strolling to the other side of the pasture. One of my great-nephews cried out, "Ponies, ponies!" Several exited the patio door with him and sat on the porch. When I walked out a few minutes later, I noticed the setting sun. Deja vu. I picked up my great-nephew and asked, "Want to pet the ponies?" I walked over to the fence with him on my hip and showed him how to call for the horses. I had no idea if it would work, but made a clicking sound with my tongue in cheek, followed by a luring coax. "Come on, baby. Here, baby. Come here." In a few seconds, the tall chestnut one turned in our direction, his mane slung back and forth. As his head bobbed up and down, the little boy bubbled over. "He's coming, he's coming." The other horses followed his lead. He hung his head over the barbed wire fence. I stroked the long bridge from his eyes down to his nose as he nibbled at my hand, and the now shy lad squirmed in my arms. Someone threw out carrots from the patio door, and I wondered if that was exactly what the beautiful creatures had in mind. The horses extended their stay, and we had such a delightful after-dinner treat. Yes, some things change, and some things don't. Lines around the eyes reflect a full life. But on the inside, things are still the same as life continues on. I see Mark and Mary and Michael and Karen on here. Thanks for listening to this story. You know what amazed me about this story is that the 2 stories are 25 years apart, and yet so many things were very, very similar. One of my sisters took some excellent pictures, and I think I have those posted in the original blog if you wanted to go to my website, DeborahIrene.com. And you'll have to scroll back to the blog archives, and I think it's from June, I said 2014. But there are some pictures that she took that day. I really like the silhouette picture. It's also on my Facebook page of the silhouette of my face, the little boy's face, and the horse. But so much of these 2 stories are so very similar, and it's just remembering life and the simple things in life. So I hope that you take some time this spring, now that you can get out and about and enjoy life. Again, this is Deborah Irene, and it was story time, reading from my book, Someday I Will Write. And this story was Hanging Over the Fence, or the magazine edition of it was Stop and Pet the Pony. Take care. Have a good evening.